Hi everyone, in this video I'll be painting Astorath the Grim. So I recently got the new box set and I just had to paint him first. So in this video I won't be following a clear guideline. I'll just be experimenting with different colors and shades. I've sub-assembled him just to make it easier, like the shoulder pads and the head aren't attached. So I love using Green Stuff World pigment paints, and for this one I'm using the bronze color, and I've mixed it with AK Interactive Pigment Fixer, and I've covered this in other videos with different paints like the gold or the antique gold, and this is how it looks. I think it's fantastic, super reflective. I stuck the shoulder pads on some blue tack just to make it easier for me to paint, and then I just paint other areas that will be bronze. I use Flesh Tear as contrast paint. I didn't thin it, and I just paint this over all the areas of muscle. I actually like this step because as I'm painting like the different parts, the model really starts to come together, and you start seeing more shape and definition, and it's quite exciting in a way. It's good if you're OCD as well, because you can really take your time and really paint each area and make it nice and clean. Yeah, it's quite therapeutic in a way. Do you feel the same way when you do this kind of stuff? Like some people I know, they love painting trim, and I hate painting trim, which this model has quite a fair bit of trim, so that's why I paint this way. I did the same thing with my Vanguard. I used this pigment paint, and then I used Black Legion contrast paint and painted the armor instead of the trim first. I decided to leave the backpack mostly black apart from those stabilizing flaps. Now I glue on the shoulder pads because I've managed to paint all that red stuff. The muscle, sorry, I forgot what I was saying. Then I use Black Legion to paint all the black carapace, the joints and so on. Now I use Corvus Black. I haven't used this paint for a long time, but I used to use it quite a lot for black armor, and I just go over the backpack now and like the wings with, not all the wings, just the outside part of the wings, the arms I guess, and I just go over the backpack and tidy some areas where I might have painted the bronze. I spilled out a bit, and I chose this color because it's not like a boring black. It's got like a hue to it, and I don't know, it just adds a bit of interest when you look at it. It's not just like flat, it's got some character to it. And I also paint the joints and his hair as well, and this is how it all looks now. It's mostly blocked in. I've just blocked in all the basic colors so far. So now I use Rakoff Flesh. I like using Rakoff Flesh over bone parts. I don't know why, I felt like it's a really nice base color. I've tried like Wraith Bone and then Skeleton Horde contrast paint, and I don't know, it just doesn't really work for me. But Rakoff Flesh usually has a very nice color to it, and you can add like Agrax to it and Wraithling Flesh Shade or even Skeleton Horde, and I don't know, it's just got a really nice coverage. So that's why I chose to use Rakoff Flesh. instead of like Wraith Bone and Skeleton Horde contrast. But you know, you're welcome to use that instead, and it will probably save you a lot of time as well. I find Rhinox hide quite a perfect colour for when you want to paint belts and pouches. This model only has a belt, it doesn't have any pouches, unless I've missed it somehow and I've lost a part in this. Maybe the sprue has a pouch and I've missed it, because on the leg there's like a little circular, like a lump, and I'm thinking, oh, should there be something like I need to attach to that? Anyway, so I use silver for the metallic parts. I usually start dark and then I work my way up, but I don't know, for this model I just skipped all that and then went for the shiny metal first, because I can dull it down with some shades later on and play around a bit. As I said, I was just experimenting with this video and just, you know, as I go along, correcting myself and just feeling it and seeing if it works. I painted silver on the back of the head as well, but you don't even see it, so it's kind of a waste. But if you like doing that, if you feel better that you know it's painted, then go ahead. The tubes on the bottom of the face as well I painted silver, and now I use Iron Rack skin for his. It kind of looks like a death mask. I don't know, like the old model and art, I didn't know if it was his face because it was really pale, right? Or it was like a mask that looked like a screaming angry man, but it seems like it's a death mask. So I've kind of gone for like a marble-esque type of color. So that's why I used the Iron Rack flesh skin color. I wanted to add a bit of interest to it again, so I use Incubi Darkness on the feathers, and then I base coat the axe as well with Incubi Darkness. After all the paint's dry, I use a gloss varnish. Actually no, I use a semi-gloss varnish, because when I use an 8K panel liner paint, it melts the paint and it can be a mess. So I've learnt my lesson and I found varnishing it like a gloss or a semi-gloss, it really helps the paint flow into all the cracks. But I don't know, I feel like this might have been the wrong thing to do. I was thinking just to use Raiklin Flesh Shade, but as I said, experimenting, it seems fine, and I'm not sure if I should have skipped it, but it's done anyway. It worked very well, to be honest, over the bone stuff, and really well over the scroll, not the scroll, the purity seal. So now I use Poxwalker shade over the face, just to, you know, add a bit of definition. No, I don't make it too thick. And now I use Raiklin Flesh Shade, and I go over the whole model again, just to go over it, because I really felt the bronze needed a bit of shading and color, and the original AK panel liner paint ink, should be ink, didn't really do the job that I was hoping. It just kind of panel lined everything, so I guess it did work out fine in the end. I now use Upshapti bone to highlight the bone areas. When the paint starts to become thinner or dries on the brush, I then start to kind of dry brush a bit now. As you can see, I'm like edge highlighting and trying to make it nice and sharp, but then you'll see my brush kind of go back and forth quite fast. That's because I'm kind of dry brushing and kind of raising the brush a little bit off the surface, so it's not pressing down, and I'm just catching the sharpest areas, and I found that really helps. I've used it on faces, cloaks. This part is a bit tedious, so now I just basically paint each line and each raised area on this spine of his axe handle. It didn't take too long, but it was a bit awkward to film because of the wings, so I hope it's clear enough. I actually dry brushed the shoulder pad with that paint, with the same paint, because it will take forever to paint each skull. And then what I do, I've still got some paint on the brush, I just do the same thing over all the bone areas just to tidy up a bit, and it works very well on this purity seal here as well. Really, it kind of acts like a shade as well, like it can kind of, not a shade, like a blender, like it blends the light and the dark colors and the mid-tones. It really saves a lot of time. I even do it on the belt as well. Kind of edge highlights the belt, adds a bit of texture to it. Now I just tried experimenting using some skeleton horde, and I just went over all the bone areas with it. But what I did, I thinned it with quite a bit of water, because I didn't want it to be too strong and then dull down all the dry brushing and highlighting I've just done. For the final bone highlight, I use Screaming Skull, and I basically just dry brush it, to be honest. I don't really paint it, and I just repeat the same process as before. I had very little paint on my brush, so I just thought I'd just do it on the hair, because later on I'll probably add some shades or contrast to the hair to dull down this Screaming Skull dry brush. Then I use Evilson Scarlet, and then I just again dry brush over the muscles on the armor. I don't cover all the muscles because some parts are really tiny. You can, if you're really patient and have a tiny brush, you can paint each muscle strand, each fiber. I use a brush to paint the fingers, so that's the main part I don't dry brush. And I use Berserker Blood Shade. I haven't used this before, I just saw it in the shop and I thought I'll try it out. And I just go over all the armor I've just dry brushed, all the red parts with it. And I think it just solidifies it. It's a bit chalky because I did a bit of dry brushing. And I just felt this really tidies it up a bit. I even used some Evilson Scarlet to paint over all the blood drops. There's quite a few actually. There's one on his head, and there's one on this helmet here, and even on his axe as well. I couldn't find any of my greys from GW, so I just used this AK Interactive grey. I was trying to find, not Thunderhawk, Dark Reaper. No, I was trying to find Thunderhawk, but it was all gone. So I used this instead, and I just airbrushed the bottom of the wings. And basically, if you hold the model to a light, you can see where the shine is, and then you can just follow that where the glare is from the natural light. It looks a bit bright at the moment, but I will tone it down later with some shade. I mix it with Proraco White, so this kind of looks like Fenrisian grey now, so you can just use Fenrisian if you don't have this. And I just airbrush the tips of the wings and also the blade as well, and part of the base too. I actually focused a bit on the base because I had a few, not a few, I had some paint left in my airbrush, so I just aimed it at the base and I still had loads left. So I don't like to waste paint, but sometimes that happens. I use Pure Pro Acryl White now on the tips, just to make it nice and bright. Then I use Achromatic Blue contrast paint, and I don't thin it, and I just cover the blade with this paint. And I thin it a little bit towards the white area, but not too much. Now I use Elven Gold, and I just basically tidy up areas I might have painted red by accident with the dry brush or with my brush. And also when I use the panel lining and Raglan Flesh Shade paints, they might have dulled it too much, or the paint pooled a bit too thick in some areas, so I just kind of tidied that up. Now I use Agrax over all the rock and the base, and also the belt as well, and some of the bone areas too. So the reason why it looks very grey is because it's on purpose. I wanted the base to have lots of like dust and dirt, and then I knew if I put on the Agrax, it would tone it down and change the colors a bit as well. So that's why I usually paint my bases this way. And I even use Agrax over the hair as well, just to add a bit of brown to it, and you know, non-oil as well. This is how I tone down the wings as well. So I put it on thick at the top here, then I wash my brush and I add some water to it, and then I just feather it. And what I do as well, I add a bit more water, and then I just let the paint flow into all the crevices of each feather. Then I use decomposed flesh, and I dry brush this over the base, especially the rocky areas. And this is like the final step, and it really adds a bit of like stone kind of color to it. It's a really nice color. You know, even though a paint is called decomposed flesh, don't listen to that. You can still use it for other things. If it looks like the color you need, but it has a weird name, don't worry, just try it. So I found my Varnishing Grey before I could find it, and what I do, I just dry brush the wing, and I go from the bottom, and then I work my way up, and I just catch all the feathers, but I make it thicker at the bottom. Then I use an airbrush, and I just thin it down and airbrush the Varnishing to at the bottom of the wings. And I also go over the blade. I just aimed it at the white part of the axe head. I highlight the death mask with Deepkin Flesh. I paint the nose, the eyebrows, and the cheekbones. And as I get to the bottom, the paint dries a little bit and it gets a bit thin. Then I start kind of dry brushing a bit, and it kind of catches the edges. I use Gauze Blaster to edge highlight the blade to sharpen it up a bit. You can even use it in an airbrush and go over the edges of the blade too, if you feel it's a bit too dull, like it's not bright enough yet. And I use the side of my brush just to catch the areas, and sometimes it will have a scratchy effect too, which is nice. So it kind of has like a glass effect. Because I don't know, I like a kind of diamond blade, crystal blade kind of look to my blue weapons. Then I use some snow texture paint. I just cover the base with that. I use snow quite a lot recently because I felt it really separates the model from the base and it adds a bit of tonal difference to it. Yeah, see what you think. You can even add some grass tufts if you wanted to. So this is how the model looks. I'm pretty chuffed with it, to be honest. A lot of trial and error, lots of shades, lots of playing around with it. I might go back to some parts of it, but overall it's done and I'm happy with it. So if you found this video useful, please subscribe and leave your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Happy painting everyone. See you next time. Bye.